Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. We're talking 10 best pay-per-views, pop-per-views, for this week. We've already come up with the next week's show title, or next week's show. It's going to be our 10 most favorite terrible shows. Because tonight's headline, tonight's show title is our 10 favorite pay-per-views and why they're December to Dismember. That's a terrible show. I like that show, but I don't mean that it's good. I mean I like it. I like a lot of terrible things. Have you seen My Ex-Girlfriends? So this week, though, we're focusing on the best that pro wrestling has to offer. Our lists are in no particular order, necessarily speaking, but they can be. I don't know. Mine are kind of all over the place. And because I didn't want to know all of Marcus's picks because I want to experience them in the moment, we don't have any other photos. So, we have one photo, like last week. You can put us on, walk away, listen to us all over the house, and not worry about missing any images. That would be like, oh, yeah, that might be a thing. And depending on how we feel, we may talk a little newsy after the end of it, but I like the format that we're going into because I feel like it allows us to more express our fandom. And there's apparently a flood in the area, so that's fun. Marcus, are you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
I went last week, so I will go first this week. I feel like that's fair. And again, these are in no particular order. My first nomination, if you will, for best pay-per-view of all time is going to be Bound for Glory 2006. This was... I forgot to add a word and completely misspelled another one. Why is this doing this to me? Why must we be like this, Internet? So Bound for Glory 06 was the night Sting won his first world title in 6 years. He defeated Jeff Jarrett in the main event in what would ultimately be Jeff Jarrett's swan song as a main eventer in the company, at least a headline championship main eventer. The rest of the show also featured, and arguably this might be my favorite card of all time. Like, if I had to have a number one, it might be this. Because this was also the last show before Vince Russo came in. Like, he had already been announced as coming in, but he was starting after Bound for Glory. And you can tell because this is the show that it slaps, Marcus. It slaps. You got Austin Starr winning the Kevin Nash Open Invitational X Division Gauntlet Battle Royal for Bound for Glory, where Nash awarded the winner a bowling trophy. Fucking hilarious. Team 3D won a four-way tag team match with the Naturals, AMW, and Billy Gunn and Kip James when they were known as the James Gang. Samoa Joe defeated Abyss, Brother Runt, and Raven in a Monsters Ball match. Eric Young defeated Larry Zbyszko in a loser gets fired match. Sabin versus Senshi, when that's Loki for those of you not familiar. He had a weird name change when he came back in 06. Christian Cage defeated Rhino in an 8-mile street fight, which might be one of my favorite street fights of all time, because I think this was the event where Christian piled all the chairs on top of Rhino and started hitting him with another single chair, and Don West screams, "The concussions! Look at all the concussions!" One of the best calls of all time. LAX versus AJ Styles and Daniels in that amazing 6 sides of steel cage match. And of course, Sting versus Jeff Jarrett. What really made this show so important, Marcus, was the ambiance of the event. It was the first major show they had ever done in an arena since the first 2 pay-per-views, or first 2 sets of pay-per-view tapings back in 2002. 3,600 strong. It was a legitimate sellout at the CompuWare Sports Arena in Plymouth Township, Michigan. Just watching the show back is awesome. The crowd was on fire, and everything they did, it made you feel like it was a WrestleMania kind of environment. This show definitely is on my top 10 for that reason alone. What about you, Marcus? What's your first of 10? I have a slight delay, apparently.
Unmute yourself, dumbass.
I've done that before.
Yeah, mine is also TNA Persuasion Bound for Glory. Mine's 2009. Um, this was, of course, another quality showing by the company. This is when we kicked off things and had the guns going against Lethal Consequences before, obviously Jay and Austin Creed would go off to have very different careers in different companies. We had in his prime, it felt like Amazing Red, with Don West, the mouth of TNA South, if you will, taking on Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Homicide, Suicide, and Chris Daniels in a phenomenal Ultimate X match. Then you had great tag team action with British Invasion, with Main Event Mafia, Beer Money, and Team 3D. And I mean, they ended the night with two of the best to do it, and I think one of my favorite things was this was coming off obviously in 2009 when AJ Styles finally got the world title, and AJ Styles went up against Sting. Not only because obviously Sting got doesn't really need to qualify for a title match, but this was very much coming off of Sting kind of handing him the championship in a way in a multi-man match that saw AJ win.
Mm-hmm.
So that match was really important for both parties, kind of like a passing of the torch for Sting at a time when AJ really was the man. So 2009 was a really good year for the company.
It was solid booking. Again, this is pretty historic because this was the last pay-per-view before the Hogan Bischoff regime.
Yeah.
Ironic how that works. The better shows are always like right there at the end. I thought about putting this on my list. The reason why I didn't was they had Joe and Lashley and Abyss and Mick Foley in matches that I was super hyped for. And while they were fine, I was expecting so much more than just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Morgan Angle was great, but this was also Booker T's last show. And like they write him out in like the first 4 minutes of the match. So Scott Steiner's carrying the entire load for this 4-team Full Metal Mayhem ladder match. It's dumb, and I love it. That's a real solid pick. We're gonna keep the bandwagon going because I got Bound for Glory 2007 on my list. These 4 years of Sting pay-per-views, solid, real dang solid. This was the first ever encounter between Sting and Kurt Angle. It was in Atlanta, and granted, not all this show holds up well. They had Adam Pac-Man Jones, a part of the World Tag Team title scene. He was tagging with Ron Killings, and he was supposed to wrestle. Like they signed him to wrestle. But what ended up happening was the NFL, and I think he was still a member of the Titans at the time, they're like, no, Adam can't wrestle. That's a breach of his contract, and we'll sue him. So they're like, all right, we'll just go and find somebody else then. And I'm like, oh, cool. Who are they going to get? Frank Wycheck? Are they going to bring him back? Because he did a thing at Slammiversary 07. It's like, why not? And then they go and get this little dude named Consequences Creed. I'm like, oh, he's Apollo Creed from Rocky. He comes out with the hat, the sunglasses, the vest. He's got I think he even had the boxing gloves. And he was just coming out. And I was like, all right, he probably won't be anything. 17, oh, God, was it 17? No, 15 years later. Consequences Creed is Xavier Woods. So,
Yeah.
It's wild to see where we were. So Ron Killings and Consequences Creed had the best name because it was Truth or Consequences.
Yeah.
I dug that. So good. But Styles and Tomko won that match. We also, unfortunately, had the Fight for the Right Reverse Battle Royal. I didn't think it was that bad. I know a lot of people like to hang on their hats like this is one of the worst things ever. It's not bad, but it's not good. Basically, everyone started outside the ring. They tried to climb their way in the ring. Then it became a battle royal, and then you had to throw everyone out. And then the last two people wrestled the match. It was a thing. But we also had Jay Lethal versus Christopher Daniels when they were both in the primes. The Steiner brothers versus Team 3D in a 2 out of 3 falls match. We had the crowning of the first ever women's champion in TNA, as well as an unexpected flashing from Awesome Kong. I don't know if you remember that, Marcus, because they have subsequently eliminated that from history.
Thankfully, I don't. Shout out to Kill Stevens, but it's just not something actively would look forward to.
She got clotheslined over the top rope, and her garment, because it's like she wore like that battle dress, and
Yeah,
apparently it just connects around the hip. The placings kind of popped, and it went right over her face. And I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. But they've eliminated that from history. Joe defeated Christian Cage. This was Christian's first loss in the company by pinfall or submission. We had another Monsters Ball match. This one with who is it? No, that would be next year. They would bring in Mongo. And the year before, they had Jake Roberts in '06. I completely forgot to mention that. And then, of course, the main event was a great main event. Sting versus Kurt Angle for the world title. One of the best main events in Impact history. Just stellar. Stellar. Marcus, what's your next selection? I think he muted himself, people.
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and correct again. Go ahead and highlight the X division with this one with Destination X 2012.
Ooh. This is the show that unfortunately brought back Austin Aries.
Yeah, I cringed on it, but I was like, this is time before he was like full comp mode when he was literally like on top with all the momentum in the world. Um, and ended that reign that I don't think you were too big a fan of from Rude. So, um,
at
yeah,
the
this,
at the time, I thought the win was the right call, but hindsight, I think they should have waited until Bound for Glory with James Storm.
mm,
Personally,
yeah, this was like I said, Destination X sort of features number X division talent. You had these kick it off with a four-way qualifier because the X division championship was vacant at the time, and you had the likes of some established talent Impact, but also some new talent coming through like Dakota Darso, Lars Only, Rubix, Ace and Andrews, and the like.
and Mason
Also had
Andrews is Scorpio Sky.
yeah. So you had them facing off like to kick it off with Scorpio Sky versus Kid Cash. Shout out to Cash back then. Very the violent X Division wrestler. Uh,
Swole Cash.
Swole Cash. Um, King versus Doug Williams. Some good stuff. You had Sanjay Dunn versus Rashad Cameron. And good old DJZ back then, Zima Ion versus Flip Casanova. Also had, great match between Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. Joe beating him by technical submission. That was cool. Um, I think this was the final. Was this the final chapter in the Styles Daniel saga with the Last Man Standing match?
I was just about to say, I'm pretty sure as far as a singles match go, yes, this was the last
Yeah.
match that they had. Because I think they were in that triple threat at Bound for Glory, where it was Daniels and Kazarian versus Styles and Angle versus Chavo and Hernandez.
Yeah. So
That was a wild three-way.
yeah, that was wild. So yeah, eventually you get the components, the competitors for the four-way, for the Ultimate X match that will determine the new champion for the vacant title. Zima Ion will take that. But then you end the night with Aries, Austin Aries coming off of nothing but intense momentum. He dominated, absolutely came in and dominated the X Division all year as the champion. They came up with the concept for Option C from the cash it in to go against a very dominant Rude, Bobby Roode at the time. And yeah, I mean the hype was real, and when he won the championship, it really felt like something special at the time. So yeah, it was a great match. Two very polarizing guys who, I guess they, like you say, good tag team. I mean, good enemies make great tag team partners, and we would find out years later. But for here, it ended Rude's reign and started something what felt like a boom period, but turned into something else.
Yeah, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that Jeff Hardy was coming back into the fold, and they were setting up the redemption arc, and then they were also kind of going off into the Aces and Eights stuff.
Yeah,
So, yeah, they fucked up.
Yeah, yeah. You suffer from both things. I Aries suffer from both things, the Hardy thing and the Ace of the Nate situation.
Yeah, because they did the entire September pay per view. I think it was against all odds, and they threw Aries in a non-title, non-match against a member of the Aces and Eights. It may have been Nux,
Yeah.
Mike Knox, but he was still
Hmm.
like in his mask. So,
Yeah.
so my pick for the next one is we're going through all the TNA ones apparently, which I'm fine with. Is Bound for Glory '08 or AKA Bound for Glory number 4. This was Sting versus Samoa Joe in the main event, and the first inklings, or at least the true first inklings of the main event Mafia, which is kind of ironic because the only main event Mafia member who won on the night was Booker T. He defeated AJ Styles and Christian Cage in a three-way, which was at the time a decision nobody liked. In fact, a lot of people thought that they wasted Styles in this match, and I don't disagree. There was no. Was there a Scott Steiner sighting on the show? I don't think so. There's no Scott Steiner. Angle lost to Jarrett, and like this is like one of those matches. Like when people want to talk about Jeff Jarrett, this is one of those matches where you can't deny how good Jarrett is. And I know everyone's like, well, he's working with Kurt Angle, but you got to remember, like Kurt Angle has had some duds. Like it's not just one person. Like the idea that like you can wrestle a broom to a 5-star match if you're that good is a lie. Like you actually need to be talented. So, like, this was a really good match. Sting versus Joe wasn't Sting's best main event. I thought the Jarrett one was better and the Angle one was better. But this one had the craziest spot, the most unnecessary, stupid fucking spot in the history of wrestling. Samoa Joe jumping off a platform of stairs, or I think platforms, right? Balcony, and going down like 12 flights of stairs to land on Sting, but not really, and like completely miss him. And I think about this match all the time, Marks, and I'm like, well, that was fucking stupid. But they also had Jay Lethal winning a Steel Asylum match, which, again, Sheik Abdul Bashir, a.k.a. Davari, defeated Consequences Creed to retain the title. And Taylor Wilde defeated Awesome Kong to retain the women's knockouts match. The four-way Monsters Ball tag team match was dope. And having Steve Mongo make Michael a part of it was pretty good. So, yeah, definitely not the strongest lineup, but some of the better moments for sure. So I would recommend that one. Marcus, moving on to you. What's your next show?
Like I said, we're taking the TNA train right now. For me, um, and this show this was not the strongest card ever. Um, really one of the best tag matches they ever did, but not one of the strongest cards. But to me, this is the 10th anniversary of Slammiversary. Um, and I think my favorite thing about this show back in 2012 was the venue, that Arlington, Texas venue they did.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that looked great on screen. It looked great. It looked like it was packed. Well, it was because I mean it's one of the biggest crowds, 5,500 people. Um, it was just good. I mean, like I said, they had some good stuff on the show. They kicked it off with a really great match between Austin Aries back when he was having his X Division reign versus Samoa Joe. You had stuff on there like James Storm. I think he ended Crimson's reign in this match.
Yes.
I mean, on the show. At I guess Brooks versus Gale was alright. I don't remember specifically. Pretty sure Joseph Park versus Bully Ray had to be entertaining.
Oh, it was
Uh,
incredibly entertaining.
but ultimately, this tag team match between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle versus Bad Influence, this is a must-watch match.
Mm-hmm.
This was great. And then you end the night with Rude versus Sting, and this was another cool match too, because obviously Sting's trying to. This is during the time Sting's trying to take out all the bad apples, and obviously Rude was showing himself to be one of the most rotten. And once again, Rude narrowly escaped with the victory. But yeah, man, I think like I said, my favorite thing was this venue. The Slammiversary was always good, but I think that venue, obviously the 10th anniversary was a big thing, but that venue really highlighted not only the potential, but what they should, be doing more of. So, yeah.
So this is also on my list. So the one thing that I want to point out is the X Division at the time had a weight limit. So that was dumb. And with Joe's arrival, they are like, yeah, for one night only, Joe, can wrestle for the X Division title. And I'm just like, but why would you make it for the belt? Because if he wins it, he has to relinquish it. Like, that's dumb. That's so dumb. The show also had a heavy influence of Texas wrestlers like Hernandez. He defeated Kid Cash. And we also had Miss Tessmacher in a really good match against Gail Kim, winning the X Division title for the first time. And she had a real great moment afterwards where she gave this really heartfelt, tearful, kind of congratulatory speech. So that was really cool. We also had a three-way match for the number one contendership of the world title. It's Jeff Hardy, Rob Van Dam, and Mr. Anderson. That was a real solid match. And this was, I think, the pay-per-view debut of Joseph Park as well.
Yeah. So a lot of good stuff in there coming off of stuff. It showed like this was on, like you said, Hardy, Van Dam, and Mr. Anderson when Mr. Anderson was that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I said, like Joseph Park's thing was good. I gotta go back and watch that Miss Tessmacher match because this was, like you said, her winning it for the first time, and obviously she would go on and get better. But up until that point, she had to kind of. The only thing about that gimmick that she kept was the name.
Mm-hmm.
Because she, kind of had like a Candice Michelle evolution in a way. Because as Miss Tessmacher, she really just was the hot girl backstage. And then she kind of, we just got to see her evolve. And, when Gail Kim put you over, it's a big nod. So, But yeah, that tag match was the highlight of the show. They Styles and Angle together, like we've seen them countless times up until that point fight each other. But them tagging against a in their prime bad influence, brilliant.
Yeah, it was a real dang solid show. By the by, I was really thinking that they were going to bring Goldberg. I was like, they're going to bring Goldberg to beat Crimson. It's going to happen. And I was so disappointed when it was James Storm. I got myself so hyped.
I remember that. You did? Yeah, you gaslit the hell out of yourself.
He really did. Everyone's like, he's not coming. I'm like, yes, he is. Believe. Clap your hands if you believe. Yeah, so yeah. All right. Marcus, what's your next one? Because that was technically also mine as well.
Yes. Let's see what we got. We gone down to go down. Let's travel over to New Japan, see what they cooking up.
Ooh.
New Japan. I got New Japan for Wrestle Kingdom 8.
I want to say good show because obviously, but they're all good shows.
Yeah. Wrestle Kingdom 8. This I mean, like you said, they always good shows, but this show specifically, obviously it's in the great Tokyo Dome. And on this show it featured.
Not to cut you off, but this was the first one to actually have English live commentary, isn't it?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was.
Because it's Matt Stryker and Jim Ross.
Yeah, I think it was. Again, like you said, they're always great. Full cards. The Bucks took on the Forever Hooligans, Suzuki Gun, and Time Splitters. Bullet Club faced off with Killer Elite Squad back when this stuff was still a thing. Rob Conway was still doing this thing and took on Kojima.
Oh, yeah. For the NWA title, that's right.
Absolutely. Great Muta was even on this show, man, with New Japan's very own class clown Yano taking on Suzuki Gun, which was at the time Minoru Suzuki and Mark Henry. I mean Shelton Benjamin.
Shelton X Benjamin, sir.
Shelton X Benjamin. And Hiroki Goto versus Shibata when before everything went down was getting taken out. You would imagine Kota and Bushi and Prince Devitt put on a classic. Okada and Naito have really had a bad match, but Hiroshi Tanahashi and Shinsuke Nakamura obviously shut it down with a shorter match than the world title match, but obviously this was during the time when the Intercontinental Championship was as, if not more important than the world title. So yeah, another classic show.
I think this match was also the first time they ever headlined Wrestle Kingdom with the IC belt. And the ironic thing is, so the main events, the two of them were Okada versus Naito and Tanahashi versus Nakamura. The previous year, Okada and Tanahashi were in the main event together, and Nakamura took on Kazushi Sakuraba for the IC belt. So I think that's kind of funny that or not funny, but it's interesting that they kept the main event guys in the main event spots for both years, because this was when Tanahashi was still Tanahashi. Not to say he's not, but you know he's an elder statesman now. You do decline eventually, but this is when they were at their peaks. So, hell of a pay-per-view suggestion. That's a damn good one. Marcus, I'm going with Genesis '06 as my next event. This was definitely a Vince Russo show. You can tell. We had the Voodoo Kin Mafia taking on Kazarian, Maverick, Matt, and Johnny Devine. I love this match because this was the first inklings of Raven's new serotonin gimmick. Because Devine, Matt, which is Matt Bentley, and Kazarian would all become members of Serotonin. Or they may have already been, actually. They just didn't get new names yet. We got the first version of Miss Brooks, which was not Brooks Tessmacher. It was Tracy Brooks. She was repping Robert Roode. I think this was the debut of her as Robert Roode's valet. No, that was '06. That was '06 anniversary. So that was the month before. Daniels versus Sabin. Christian Cage versus AJ Styles was a banger. You also had the last match with LAX and AMW. If I remember correctly, this was when AMW split. Well, it may have been Turning Point the next month. Let me double check. It was next month. So this is the start of the decline of AMW. Abyss versus Sting was the first time that they ever did the title switch via DQ, which was great, because they always said, like, if in this company, if you get disqualified as champion, you will lose the belt. And I feel like they should bring that back. I always love that stipulation. I hated the whole, well, we're going to, just do a fucking fake finish and whatever. So I would bring that back. But the main event, Marcus, the coup de grace, was the first ever encounter of Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. And while their third encounter at Final Resolution '07 was their best, this is still a good match. And it also serves as the highest rated, most purchased pay-per-view in TNA's history. And I still think to this day that they should have prolonged their build-up a little bit. But they were really gung-ho to get this thing started. And it was a really good feud. Like they feuded until, August of 2007? And it's arguably one of TNA's best feuds. So that's on my list. What about you?
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite shows of all time, and part of it got because it fell directly on my birthday. Still in New Japan, I'm going with Dominion 2017.
Ooh.
And not much like Wrestle Kingdom, Dominions are always, stacked and phenomenal shows. Had the Young Bucks taking on Roppongi Vice, God going against War Machine. Cody defeated Michael Elgin, who shall not be shit about. But this particular match really made me, because Kushida is a favorite of mine, one of my favorite Japan wrestlers. He took on Hiromu Tanahashi in a phenomenal match. Kushida had been on a losing streak, could not find a formula to take down Takahashi, and he finally came up with, I think, his a schoolboy suplex that he does.
Yes.
Yeah, and he finally, just had to fight his way through, man, tough it out through, and he finally took down Hiromu, and it was great, and kind of marked some new momentum for Kushida in the company. You followed that up with, Minoru Suzuki, and the Suzuki-gun of it all, taking out my boy Goto, Jado, Ishii, Yano, and then Yoshihashi. But obviously, they put all the gas into the two main events. You got Prime Tanahashi, like you said, versus Naito, which was a classic. But this next match really defined the show because this was, up until that point, the closest Kenny Omega had gotten on his quest, coming from out being the cleaner, and then evolving into a heavyweight. Got this shot against Okada. And it was an absolutely undeniable classic. Came down to a time limit draw. And this was at that point where Cody tried to do the throw in the towel thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bucks had to stop him. Because even though they probably want to do it themselves, Omega made them promise, and this was like one of the last times that Omega had to really, really knock Nakata off. And I think it was a time limit draw. It went a literal hour, but I mean, it's storytelling personified.
Yeah, it's one of those that it sets so much in motion. It really did. The splitting of the Bullet Club, the rise of Omega, the rise of Rhodes. It's just so good, and top to bottom. Plus, you had like guys that you won't see in New Japan for a long time. Like War Machine was on the show. Miss him. Miss them. I mean, that's Ray Rowe and Hanson. I don't know what their WWE names are. It's Kerfuffle and Flamingo. I don't know. I will never learn their names of the WWE Persuasion. So this was also one of the only shows I can remember having like a dumb, stupid, hardcore stipulation because they had it was a lumberjack death match between Goto and Suzuki, I think.
Yeah.
So dumb. I love it. I love when New Japan does dumb American wrestling. Oh, it's so good. I'm going to go and throw you a curveball, Marcus. I think for my next pick, I'm going with a Ring of Honor show. And I'm going to go with Ring of Honor 2011. And mostly, like, I remember watching this match, this card thing, it was pretty good. But the main event is why it's on this show. So here's the rundown, if you're not familiar. You had Tommaso Ciampa, backed by Prince Nana and Mr. Ernesto Osiris, defeating Colt Cabana. The pre-show, listen to this pre-show. This was the dark match. You had TNA's Generation Me, Jeremy Buck and Max Buck, a.k.a. the Young Bucks, taking on Red Dragon. No, not Red Dragon. I forget what they were called. Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. That was their opener. That was their dark match opener. Then you got the Ciampa defeating Colt Cabana. Jay Lethal defeating Mike Bennett with his former manager, Bob Evans. You had Homicide versus Rhino. You had Michael Elgin versus Steve Corino. You had El Generico winning the Ring of Honor World Television Championship against Christopher Daniels. A 4-way elimination tag team match for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. You had the Briscoes, the All Night Express, which was Rhett Titus and Kenny King, the Kings of Wrestling, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, and Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, which was Shelton Benjamin and Charlie fucking Haas. And that was a great match, by the way. But the main events, the coup de grace was Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion Eddie freaking Edwards, Soren and Scorin, taking on Davey Richards. The Wolves battle in the main event for the Ring of Honor World title. It was the night Davey Richards became Ring of Honor World Champion. It was the first and one of the 3 or 4 only Ring of Honor pay-per-views I ever purchased, and I purchased it because Davey versus Eddie was the main event. Here we are 11 years later, still celebrating Davey and Eddie, and this was the show that kind of solidified, in my mind, their ability to be headliners in any company they wrestled in. So, hell yeah, more Davey and Eddie, please.
All right. I'll see you. That Ring of Honor show and raise you another.
Ooh.
This is going to warm your heart greatly. And Gonna know as soon as I say it. Best in the World 2015.
Ooh.
The minute you look it up.
I already have a vague idea. Yep. Yep. That's what I thought. That belt made you. I made this belt.
Look, man, best in the world is habitually one of Ring of Honor's.
Would you say best cards?
Yep, there it is. You kick it off. Got some chicken action with ODB. With ODB, okay.
Yeah.
That actually makes sense. Um,
Match
with
made in
Donovan,
hell.
yeah, the Donovan Dijakovic with Truth Martini, the OG. Um, can't believe,
T-bar.
yeah, I can't believe Adam Page was ever affiliated with BJ Whitmer, but you gotta grow out of some, you know. You got Dalton Castle versus Silas Young, which I remember being really great because it's the whole contrast of this little peacock and pansy versus the last real man.
Mm-hmm.
So tension was thick,
Oh, yeah.
right with tension. So the Castle overcame the elder statesman in that regard. You got War Machine going against the Wrestle Factory. Yeah, man, CNC Wrestle Factory. Our boys Caprice Coleman and Cedric Alexander.
And Cedric hated this tag team.
Yeah, man.
He famously said that they only put us together because we're both black dudes with C names.
Yeah. That's. I mean, and I guess, and they got dog walk too because it only went 3 minutes and 37 seconds. So,
Caprice Coleman deserves so much better.
absolutely. Followed that up with Roderick Strong defeating Michael Edwin and Moose.
With Stokely
Uh,
Hathaway.
yeah, was so glad the way and a young budgeting Vader Scott. So that was a thing. Of course, this is the time where Bullet Club is thick in Ring of Honor as well. You got AJ Styles, Matt, Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. We're taking on the Kingdom. Cole, Bennett, and Taven with, the lovely Maria. So that match, 14 minutes, 47 seconds, that was a great one. And you followed up with the Addiction. This is Bad Influence in Ring of Honor. Taking on Red Dragon. You got them two back-to-back must-sees. I don't even need to go back on it. I don't even need to guess about it. But this show was highlighted truly by one match.
Mm-hmm.
You got Jay Lethal. We knew this kid coming up being Black Machismo, then trying to build his own name. Eventually, in TNA, coming out of TNA to Ring of Honor to truly cement himself as a single star, becoming the TV champion, eventually having an epic reign with that, and then running into a extremely dominant Jay Briscoe. And Jay had one of the best build-ups of a champion. It kind of reminded me of what they did with Aries, but I liked it better with Jay. Yes, and I voted for the man because he's black.
At least you're honest.
One of the greatest build-ups and one of the single. This is talked about numerous times by me and Chad. We continue to up this promo. One of the greatest champion versus champion pre-match exchanges before the big show, when Jay just got in Briscoe's face and was like, "I made you. No, that belt made you, but I made this belt." And it was, I mean, look, man, it was a winner-take-all match. It was phenomenal. It was a classic, and it is brilliant.
So, for my next pick, and you're right about all that, by the way, Jay Lethal went full Ric Flair for that promo. I'm going back in time to a time when Ric Flair was still active. 2022. Wait. That's not right. It shouldn't be right. I'm going back to 1997. Halloween Havoc 97, Marcus. Two of our shows that we picked, Slammiversary 2012 and Bound for Glory 06, made this list because of the ambiance of the venue. This was another one, but not from so much the fan standpoint, but this was, I think, their peak Halloween Havoc set. You had the big bouncing purple gremlin in 98, and that was awesome. That was great. But this one had the skull logo and the great dual entrances with the more what the fuck is it called? They're like mausoleums, and then you had like all the little tombstones. And listen, '98 is up there. The bouncing gremlin ghost goblin thing and the pumpkin was great, but I feel like the '97 one was a little bit less Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior 2E. Because I still gotta grade these cards. Like the '98 set might be a tinge better than '97 set, but the '98 set still has to deal with Nash and Hall during Hall's alcohol addiction storyline. And you still had Hogan Warrior 2. You had the ending of the main event, happening 10 minutes before the pay-per-view actually technically ended. So, like, the rest of the show went on after the show ended. So it's like, yeah, I love the '98 set, but '97 is pretty good. And this card is a banger. Here's the card. Yuji Nagata versus Ultimo Dragon. Jericho versus Geto. Mysterio versus Guerrero. And this is the match with the purple Phantasmo suit that everyone talks about. Jacqueline defeating Disco Inferno, so that's always great. Kurt Hennig versus Ric Flair. Lex Luger versus Scott Hall. Randy Savage versus DDP in maybe their best match. This was their Las Vegas sudden death match. It was just a death match, but, they had to be fancy with the naming. But the main event, which I thought was actually pretty good, was Roddy Piper defeating Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, by technical submission in a steel cage match. And if I remember correctly, this may have been the show where Macho Man jumped off the cage and into the ring and nearly broke his knee. So that was pretty funny. This is also all to build up to the Sting match at Starrcade a few months later. So definitely one of those shows that I think holds up really well in time. And I know the main event's not the best, but it's Piper pulling off some pretty good wrestling despite his fake hip. So I would recommend this one, definitely. What about you, Marcus? What's your next pick?
Close out my Ring of Honor run with what may very well be the last Ring of Honor show proper. Final bout of 2021.
Ooh.
Yeah, man. Obviously, Ring of Honor, Pillar in Wrestling, founded in 2002. Defined a very significant part in time of wrestling and produced some of the greatest guys to be known in the business. Ups and downs, roller coaster rides, peaks, valleys, all that good stuff. And we come to this what was seemingly felt like would be the last time we would see Ring of Honor in this form anyway. Felt like it had built itself up after a lot of tumultuous times, coming out with that pure tournament and building some good momentum, regaining a lot of their fan base and whatnot. Kind of not being able to rely so much on what ultimately became a crush with them with their New Japan relationship, and kind of just having to set their own pace, dictate their own pace with their own guys. And yeah, I mean, look, this was a stat card. It was a heartfelt show. It was a hit-felt show because of the matches, and it was a stat card to kick it off with. The Righteous, going against one of my favorite stables that I wish was still together, and Shane Taylor Promotions. That kicked off the show. Then, you go deeper into the card, you got a 10-man tag, PJ Black, Flip Gordon, Beer City Bruiser, a famous cheeseburger now against Max Impaler, Demonic Flamita, Will Ferrara, and those guys. That was great. Dragon Lee versus Ray Horace. Got to go watch that. Rhett Titus defeating Dalton Castle. And Silas Young and Joe Hendry. Rhett Titus came a long way. Good guy. Good TV champion. One of Chad's favorites, Josh The Goods was.
He is one of my favorites, but his nickname fucking sucks.
Took on Brian Johnson in the great technical pure master retain. Our boy Shane Taylor, shout out to him. Defeated Kenny King in a hell of a match. Well, in a fight without honor match, which was great. Young Rock C took on who was a revelation to me, and Willow Nightingale in a really great match to crown the first Ring of Honor Women's World Champion.
No, she had held the belt for a little while. The first one was Killer Kelly, I think. So this was Roxy's like first big defense, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Appreciate that. That was her first big defense, but it was a phenomenal match, and it was sweet and sour. Sweet because it was a great match, but sour because it's like they just getting that women's division finally off the ground with some momentum with the title, with a great champion, a lot of great competition, and yeah. So, yeah, 2 matches left. I mean, you got Violence Unlimited, Brody King, Homicide, and Tony Deppen taking on Rocky Romero and them boys. That was cool. But these final 2 matches, the Briscoes versus OGK, you got a reunion between Taven and Bennett for some time, going against basically the tag team pillars in Ring of Honor to a great match. Then you close out the show with 2 of the best to ever come through the company and a young defending Jonathan Gresham versus the OG Jay Lethal. We close out the show in just a great title match for the vacant world title, and they really killed it. Closed out the night good. The whole night was filled, like I said, with great action and great memories as they flooded in. Some really heartfelt videos, some people of the past. You had your Punks, you had your Matt, not Cardona, freaking, why am I blanking on
Brian Myers?
Not Brian Myers, Colt Cabana.
Oh.
Colt Cabana.
Marcus, we don't all look the same.
Hilarious. Punk, Colt Cabana, Brian Daniel talked about just how important the Ring of Honor was, and how important that legacy not only was for their career, but wrestling in general. And they just closed out the show, man, with just a really great look at all the wrestlers coming into the ring, and it was a really great night of wrestling. Ring of Honor was known for putting on a great show, and they did that. And it was uncertain at the time what would happen. Obviously, we know what happened, but I think they put on a hell of a show for the final showing of Ring of Honor proper. So, yeah.
It was a very good show. Very good show indeed. I'm going to start my next string from the world of the E. And ironically, they're all within like 7 months of each other. This company was good for only so long. I'm starting with SummerSlam 2002. Pre-show was Spike Dudley versus Stevie Richards. So that was a Sunday Night Heat match. Then we had Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio, which was Rey Mysterio's pay-per-view debut. Even though this match went less than 10 minutes, it was phenomenal. Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho in my least favorite match of the night, just kind of give you an idea on the card. You had Edge versus Eddie Guerrero. The Un-Americans defeating Booker T and Goldust. This is during the height of Goldust and Booker T's hilarious run as a tag team, with a mini dust.
Mini dust.
And right before, I think Goldust got thrown into a sounding board, which turned him into a Tourette's having, Martian from Mars Attacks. Rob Van Dam defeated Chris Benoit. We had The Undertaker versus Test. Sorry, that's my least favorite match on the card. One of the best matches of all time in Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in the unsanctioned street fight. And then the main event was The Rock versus Brock for the world title. And even though the match went 16 minutes, I felt like the match only started to get going in the last 90 seconds. And that's one of the criticisms against it. But it's still the night that Brock became world champion. And it's a hell of a lot better than 04's main event, where Randy Orton took on Chris Benoit. And that match kind of, not the greatest. So yeah, 02 SummerSlam. Great crowd, great card, great everything. And it was really the last time that Rock was used as a true legitimate headlining act as a world champion. Because I know he came back in 2016 or whatever it was, but he was a featured attraction, not so much a regular roster guy. Unlike in 02 when he was still a regular roster guy wrestling on cards. In fact, right before this, maybe 2 months before this, he did the infamous Eddie Guerrero promo. Do you remember that one where he sings La Bamba to him? Eddie Guerrero.
It is ridiculous the amount of classic moments and matches The Rock has, particularly like with the promo. Like his heel run was also underrated.
Yes, in '03,
Yeah, like he had
Hollywood
some
Rock.
absolute killer stuff. But yeah, that La Bamba, like, yeah, man, The Rock, greatest sports entertainer all time, hands down. Um, and also kudos to him, man. He put over. I mean, that what more can you ask for? He put over what would probably be the biggest attraction in that company for the next however many years,
Still going.
on and off. Yeah. So that it wasn't just a stake in the ground thing. Like it
20 years,
wasn't
Marcus.
20 years, man. 20 years. And maybe they'll run that back. I don't know because I don't know if The Rock at this point in his acting career wants to go into a match with Lesnar. I just don't know if it's safe. But specifically when he did that the matches with Cena and tore his pelvis off the bone, I'm like, Jesus, I did this. Like just do the Skype calls, Rock, when you for the shows. But yeah, that was just brilliant. Like I said, he put over stuff that would that lasted because it's not like what happened with Jericho and Fandango. You know what I'm saying? Put the kid over at Mania, and that's all she wrote.
If we ever get a rematch, Rock may be bigger than Brock, which would be physically. Yeah, I mean physically.
Yeah,
which will be a huge difference between what we saw at a '02 SummerSlam.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. Brock just he might have to take the year off for that one, because it's just Brock just built differently, and Brock wasn't doing the Suplex City thing back then, so it kind of was just throwing you anyway. But yeah, that was a great show,
What's your next pick?
I also love that SummerSlam set, but
Yeah, that was a great set.
I'm gonna follow your lead and go to the E as well. I'm going to Mania though.
Ooh.
I'm going to Mania 23.
Ooh.
Good show right here. This was headlined by 3 big matches, 2 championships, 1 pop culture attraction, if you will. Battle of the Billionaires. I think that's what they deemed it. Hair versus hair match.
Mhm.
But yeah, so this was a good card. Ric Flair and Carlito back when they was tagging took on Gregory Helms and Chavo in the Lumberjack match. British Show was forgetful, but whatever. He had the Money in the Bank match when they were still a Mania attraction and not in a freaking pay-per-view on their own. Won by Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy. You had Great Khali taking on Kane. I'm sure that was a technical 5-star. Chris Benoit versus MVP. But this match ended up still on the show, and the fact that it was on so early was just atrocious. The Dead Man took on Batista.
Oh yeah, that was the main event.
This was the main event of the show. Even with the last match, and we're gonna get to that, but this stole the show to the point where I think Undertaker went backstage and was like, "Follow that."
That's literally what he did.
Yeah, went backstage and said, "Follow that," and they didn't. I mean, they came close with the last match, but it was. I mean, they blew it out, and this was a great showing for Batista. Him, because this was when him coming to SmackDown, and obviously all the big Kahuna on SmackDown was taken. They just those 2 forces collided, and the great thing about this show was the build up to it because they did these things where they tagged up as they usually do, but this had a different feel to it. They would tag Undertaker and Batista and had them go against Shawn Michaels and John Cena. And it was just some great stuff. And followed this match with the ECW Originals, RVD, Tommy Dreamer, Sabu, and Sandman versus the New Breed. When ECW, I think, was really hot as a brand. I know a lot of people don't like to give it its credit, but it had some really great stuff on there with a deep roster at one point. Yeah, you get to the Lashley with President Asshat versus Umanga, as William Regal would call him.
Umanga.
With Vinnie Mac and Armando Alejandro Estrada.
This match sucked.
Yes, it did. It was ass. 13 minutes of ass. Special guest referee by Stone Cold. Get what you will out of that form of entertainment. The match was like 80% stunts, 20% uh, in the ring. So yeah, Melina defeated Ashley. That's I mean in a lumberjill match. That this was not the this was just a precursor to what would eventually be get a woman more time and all that stuff.
This was
Uh,
not when Stephanie saved women's wrestling, folks.
yes, yes, the queen that was promised if we were in Game of Thrones. But yeah, they closed it out like I said. They closed it out with a banger, but the match of the night was already decided. John Cena took on Shawn Michaels in a really great match. Really great match. And he eventually beat Shawn by submission, the STF. Coming off, I think, the previous Mania where he had to beat Triple H, or maybe the following Mania where he beat him. Had to beat both for DX with the submission finishes, which I think felt like they got held in for about 20 minutes before they tapped.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I dug this show. This was a good show. But mainly for me, the biggest takeaway was Taker and Tista, man. A feud that would go on years after that. So.
And all be really, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the Taker Batista feud eventually bled into Batista's greatest moment in the history of pro wrestling. Why'd you do that, Ray? Why'd you do that, Ray? You're so my friend!
Yeah, man, that run. I mean, they had match after match after match. It never got. I mean, I don't know if anybody in history has got maybe Triple H doing that reign of terror he had on Raw, but the amount of title shots that he got between Undertaker and Batista being champion is absurd. But he never disappointed. He's one of my favorites of all time. And that's one of my favorite Mania matches all time. So it was good for that.
And it really cemented Batista as more than just a body.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do agree with you on that one. So, real quick thing, the main event of the show was supposed to be Triple H versus Cena in a rematch. So God decided to smite Triple H's quad, saying, "Paul, you done fucked up, son. That match last year sucked. So I'm going to bestow my favorite wrestling child, not named Steve Borden, into the main event of WrestleMania 2007. And thus we were given HBK, the holy backing kid." And thank God they did, because a rematch between Triple H and Cena would have sucked.
Yeah, and they really, that was great for them too, because the rematch they had on Raw was all time classic.
Yeah, it went an hour.
Yeah, man, they killed it. And this elevated Cena too.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately,
and
so there are some negatives.
But the great thing about this was, what year was this in? Because of my mistake, 2007? Yeah, because this was coming out of the DX reunion,
mm-hmm.
and then which led to the rise of Rated R KO, the feud in which Triple H quad was like, "Me too." The other one blew out, and Shawn Michaels had to go out on his own, and the only reason why he got the title shot was because he had to have a triple threat between him and Rated R KO. And that was a great match. But yeah, this was some good stuff. And the fact that Shawn was